regarding the return to school for this fall. And we're really happy that you've chosen to spend some time with us this early evening. I want to just let you know who's in the room with us from the district level. We have Lori Posch, and I'll let her tell you who she is and her role.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lori Posch, Executive Director of Learning and Teaching, and very happy to be spending time with you tonight. Thanks for joining.
And Tammy DeLand, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Tammy DeLand. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Communications for the district and your moderator this evening.
And Mr. Rivard, introduce yourself. They can see you if you turn your mic on, Mike.
My apologies. Getting to the mute button is a little bit more challenging when you're sharing. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Rivard. I'm the principal at Oak Hill Community School.
Thank you. And I just see that Lori Putnam joined us. Lori, would you like to introduce yourself? Maybe not, maybe?
Good evening. Thanks for letting me join.
Yes, Lori is the Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education. So we're happy that she joined us as well. And Ryan Cox, who is the Director of Technology for our district, he is always in the background. He is our big supporter. He is the one who makes it possible for us to live stream these sessions and ensures that this is being recorded so that we can play this back for families who aren't able to join us this evening. So again, I welcome you, and I'm happy that you were able to join us this evening. There we go. I wanted to let you know and share with you the school start times. For many of our elementary sites, the school start time either is not changing or changing very slightly by possibly 5 minutes or so. However, if you're a Westwood family, the start time and end time changed by about 30 minutes. And the reason for that being that we have 2 tiers of busing, and Westwood falls into that second tier. And we want to ensure that we're able to clean our buses thoroughly between tier 1 and tier 2. So that is the reason for having to make that change in school start and end times for Westwood. And you are our K-2 families, and students in grades K through 2 will come to school 4 days a week. And this means that classrooms will be at 50% capacity with a licensed teacher. And this is to allow for social distancing in classrooms and to ensure that we're doing our best to keep students and staff safe. We hired an architectural firm to help us determine what that capacity was for each of the learning spaces in our building. And so classrooms have been modified to allow, as I indicated earlier, for safe social distancing. Classroom assignments are being revised, and families will be notified shortly as to who their child's classroom teacher is going to be. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Lori Posch, our Executive Director of Learning and Teaching, to talk about what the learning expectations will be for our students in grades K through 2.
Thanks, Marcia. As Marcia said, we're really excited to be able to offer our kindergarten, first and second graders the opportunity to be in school 4 days a week. Our teachers are planning our instruction, as always, with having high expectations for our students. So while our students are in school on Monday through Thursday, they will be covering all of the kindergarten, first and second grade standards. They will be engaged in small group activities and one-to-one activities with their teachers. Because of that 50% capacity, we've been able to reduce our class size so that, as Marcia said, we can social distance, and that also gives us that opportunity to do that more individualized instruction. When our students are in school, they will be participating in all of our specialist activities, so our art, our music, our Phy-Ed. But on Fridays, they will have some additional opportunities to spend with the specialist activities that they have planned. On Fridays, our students will all log into Seesaw and do a morning meeting with their whole class and their teacher. And that Friday is set aside to be a time for learning to go deeper, to do some enrichment activities, and also to prepare in case we would need to go to all distance learning. Of course, our hope is that that doesn't happen and we can keep our students in school as much as we can. Those Fridays do give time, though, for our teachers to meet individually, to do some outreach to families and to parents. Whether our students are in school or they are in the distance learning academy or they are learning from home on Friday, our teachers are going to work really hard to build relationships with our students and to establish strong routines for when they're in building or they're at home learning. As I mentioned, it allows us the chance to utilize those technology tools and technology as a tool that we are able to provide. Our kindergarten, first and second grade students will all be receiving an iPad, and Marcia will be talking about that a little bit later.
Lori, excuse me, but logging in on Friday, does that have anything to do with attendance?
It does. Thanks, Tammy. So our attendance will be taken on Fridays by students logging into Seesaw and participating in the activities that the teacher has set up on Fridays. Thank you.
Goal setting conferences and device distribution. So September is coming very soon. It's right around the corner, and it's all that we are looking forward to. As an educator, this is what we look forward to. This is a big, it's like the Oscars for us, because we can't wait for the students to come back to school. And as part of that coming back to school, we have in previous years engaged families in goal setting conferences, and we will continue to do that this year. And goal setting conferences will be held at our sites. Parents will have opportunities to participate in sessions that will be held all day, or there will be afternoon, morning, and evening sessions available. And you will hear shortly from your building as to how to either sign up for that or what your scheduled time for conferences will be. This year, because of the pandemic, we are asking that parents and guardians and students wear a mask when they come to conferences. Social distancing will also apply during conferences, so we're ensuring that students and families and staff are being safe. We're also asking that families only bring the child or children who will be involved in establishing goals with their teacher for the upcoming school year. And again, it's to eliminate lots of extra people in the building because we want to ensure that, again, that students, staff, and families are staying safe. Also at goal setting conferences, we will be distributing the device that your child will be using for this school year. And your child or children are in grades K-2, and they will be having iPads this year. And so that iPad will be distributed at conferences. The family will have an opportunity to sit down with the classroom teacher and ensure that they and the student know how to log in to Seesaw, which is our learning platform, and also know how to log into Skyward, which is where grades will be posted, which is where we're asking you to do a self-screen check of your child in the morning, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on another slide. But teachers will have an opportunity to ensure that families and students are feeling successful with their device before they leave. How to log in, how to view assignments, how to post their schoolwork, and so on. So we're going to ensure that we have enough time to do that at conferences with families. And while I'm on the topic of devices, devices will come back and forth to school each day. And so I think it would be really important to help establish some routines with your child around, using that device and having it ready for school. So we're asking that you establish a routine with your child and that you charge the device each evening so that it's ready for school the next day. And just a suggestion that I have, it may be a good idea not to charge the device in your child's bedroom. There can be a light that is displayed from the device that could keep your child awake, and it can be tempting to be on the device when they should be sleeping, right? So maybe it's a good idea not to charge it in their bedroom. We also ask that you help your child remember then to put it in their backpack and bring it to school. And that you talk with your child about keeping their backpack or their device in their backpack at the bus stop, and that it should be taken out once they get to school. And we know that teachers will help children learn these routines as well. But if you can help your child learn these routines at home, that will be incredibly helpful also. Arriving to school. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we will be asking families to do a self-screening check before sending their child to school. And this will be a form or a document, if you will, in Skyward. At conferences, your child's teacher will help you find the form, know where to find the form, and how to use that form each day. And so it's just things like checking to see if your child has a fever or a sore throat or a cough, maybe some muscle aches. And if they do, then we're asking that you please not send your child to school that day. And again, teachers will be reviewing this process with families at conferences. Students will be expected to wear masks on the bus to and from school. We are creating a video that families and students will have an opportunity to view that helps explain some of what those expectations are for at the bus stop, such as standing 6 feet apart, how to get on the bus, where to sit on the bus, and how to disembark from the bus. We will be doing temperature scans on the bus of our K-through students while they're still seated. So we'll scan them, and then after the scan, they'll be able to disembark the bus or get off the bus and go into school. If a child does have a fever, once they arrive at school, we will call the parent and ask the parent to come to school and pick up their child. Walkers who come to school, students who walk to school, will be screened at the entrance when they come to school, where they arrive. Just also students who drive to in their family car. They will be scanned in the car, in the vehicle, and once the scanning is finished and students are good to go, then they are able to get out of their car and go into the school. For example, again, if a child does have a temperature, we would ask that the parent does take them home at that time. Just wanted to let you know that all staff will be screened as well when they come to school or to work in the morning. They'll also be doing that self-screening check that we're asking families to do as well. And once students come to school and are scanned, we are asking that they go directly to class.
Marcia, a follow-up question to that, to dropping off, can parents accompany their child to class?
That's a really good question, and I know that it's a practice that some of our buildings have made it possible for families to do that. We are asking that families drop their children off at the door this year. So walkers and families who bring their children to school in cars, we're asking that you deliver them to the curb, and there will be lots of wonderful, friendly, warm and welcoming staff there to assist your child into the building, and especially for our families new to our school districts and our schools, and especially our little kindergartners. I'm a former kindergarten teacher, and so I know that can be especially hard for some of our little ones, but I can assure you that we have lots of warm and welcoming staff who will make that day a really good one for your children.
And then real quickly, circling back to the definition of 50% capacity, the question was asked, how many children in a classroom is that?
So for example, as I indicated earlier, we had architects review all of our sites and determine what the capacity of a room could be. Most of the rooms in our buildings are either have 900 square feet, 800 square feet, or 700 square feet. So based on that, the architects reviewed what would be needed in order to social distance at the 6 feet, and how many student desks or tables could be in that space and maintain that social distance that's required. And so that is how the capacity was determined. So it will vary. Some of our rooms could have as many as 18 students, and some of our rooms could have 14 students, but each room has a designation in terms of the number of students that keep us at that 50% capacity.
And then in regard to the split, is that true for immersion also? How does immersion work?
Our immersion programs work exactly the same as our English programs. So in thinking about the K-2, it is exactly the same. Our immersion students will attend school on Monday through Thursday and be at home learning on Fridays. And same capacity, everything the same.
Thank you.
Okay, a little bit more about health and safety. As I mentioned earlier, masks will be required as soon as students get to the bus stop. And students will be expected to wear masks throughout the day. They can remove their mask once they get back to their bus stop and get off the bus and are going to their home of residence. So that means that masks will be worn at recess and during physical education. Students will have a break from wearing their masks at lunch. Cleaning routines are being established and will be posted and shared with staff. And so, for example, any materials that are shared by students during the day will be cleaned either between classes or at the end of the day before the next day that students come to school. Can go on to the next slide.
Marcia, a question about shared materials. If we're not advocating children share materials, will each child have a bag? What will that look like?
So let me say a little bit more about that. We have looked at CDC guidelines. We've looked at how other organizations, just such as childcare programs, how they have managed to share materials and ensure a safe environment for students. And so using that information, we are going to be establishing some protocols and parameters for how, especially our K-1-2 teachers, can use materials, because we know that those hands-on materials are important for young learners. It helps them. It helps them learn concepts, and especially in our kindergarten classrooms, play is an important part of their day, and we want to be able to continue to incorporate that in ways that keeps students safe. So those protocols will be taught by teachers and, again, modeled and practiced on a daily basis. And so, for example, in the kindergarten classroom in the Dramatic Play Center, there will be a limit, and that limit will most likely be just 2 students, but 2 students who know the distance at which they can interact in a safe way. In terms of learning materials, students may have individual materials, and they may also share materials, but when they share materials, as I indicated earlier, those materials will be cleaned between classes or cleaned at the end of the day. Hopefully that answered your question. Okay, let's talk about breakfast and lunch. Meal service will continue regardless of the learning model that we're in. So breakfast and lunch will be served at school within the in-person and the hybrid models. At the elementary level, meals will be served in the classroom so that we eliminate lots of movement throughout the building. The kitchen staff will wear masks and gloves in preparation of those meals, and they'll be bringing their meals to the classroom in a tray, an individual tray for each child that has a cover on it. And so that will keep the food covered and safe. And then when students are finished eating, they'll just keep whatever they don't want to eat in that in their tray and cover it, and it will be sent back to the cafeteria. At the end of the day, students, for our K-2 students on Thursdays, will receive a meal for their at-home learning day on Friday for them to take with them. And we will ensure that students wash their hands before and after lunch, and that if any child has a food allergy that we need to take into consideration, we will handle those on an individual basis, but we do, schools will want to know about those so that we can ensure students are safe.
And Marcia, a question, is breakfast free?
Breakfast is free for all kindergarten students. And then students in grades 1 through 2, we have either a reduced rate or free, but that's dependent on the need of the family. And there are applications that families can complete. So again, that's something that's determined on an individual basis. But breakfast for kindergarten students is free for all. Lori Posch is going to talk a little bit more about those students who are in the Distance Learning Academy.
We are really excited to be able to offer a Distance Learning Academy program this year. Some of you may know that this was something that the governor asked all districts to do this year, but we don't think of it as something that we have to do. It really is something that we are excited to do and want to be able to offer to our families. As you know, our registrations for the Distance Learning Academy have just wrapped up. So our principals and our administrators are hard at work determining the class lists for all of our students. We are real fortunate to have an administrator who has been named to oversee and to work with our Distance Learning Academy, and that is Heather Abnett. Heather is the person who will be communicating all of the details out to families. One of the questions that I just received during the last town hall was about how do we know if our student was accepted into Distance Learning Academy. And all of our students who registered for the Distance Learning Academy are in the Distance Learning Academy. So you can assume that if you registered, you are part of it. Our Distance Learning Academy is taught by our district teachers, and that's a difference that you may have heard in some other places. We are using our own teachers. We really feel that our teachers are the best ones to teach our students. So we have teachers assigned to the Distance Learning Academy. Students may not be just with students from their home building. So Principal Rivard is on here. I'm going to use his building as an example again. If I am an Oak Hill student, I will remain an Oak Hill student, but I will also be a Distance Learning Academy student. I may have students in my Distance Learning Academy class from other school buildings. So it's an opportunity for them to get to know students across the district. Our daily schedule will be sent out by Heather. All of our Distance Learning Academy students will follow the same daily schedule. So whether they are in kindergarten or whether they are in 12th grade, that schedule will remain the same for all. Online instruction will take place every day. Our kindergarten, first, and second graders will be using Seesaw as the platform that their teachers will connect with them. They will be logging into Seesaw each day. They will have time with their teacher synchronously, which means live with their teacher. And they will have some times where they will work asynchronously or on their own. It's really important to us, especially for our K-1-2 students, that they're not sitting in front of their iPad all day long. So our teachers will be receiving some additional training on how to engage our students, how to give them some hands-on activities and opportunities like that. Attendance. Our students will be counted as present when they log into their Seesaw account. Our teachers will be doing a morning meeting every day with their classes. And we expect that our students participate that day. So it's not just logging in and saying, I logged in. It's doing the activities and participating in the class. Device pickup. And I'm going to, when I finish, I'm going to let people give the date because I heard it in the last session and I want to make sure I get it right. All of our students in our Distance Learning Academy will be picking up their devices at their home school. They will also be picking up things like their My Math workbook, their Wonders reading book, so that they have all of those things at home. Our Distance Learning Academy students will also participate in goal setting conferences. Those will be done virtually, so you will have a chance to meet your child's Distance Learning Academy teacher, and that schedule will come out as well. And then we will be providing meals or having meal pickups. And again, that information will all be coming out to those of you who registered for Distance Learning Academy.
I can let you know when device pickup will be. Device pickup will be on Thursday, September 3rd, between the hours of 11 a.m. and 6 p.m. And you can drive to your school site, your home, what would be your home school, drive up to the curb, and there might be in the information that you receive from Heather a specific door to drive up to. But you'll be able to drive up, put your child's name in the window, or say your child's name. Someone will go into the building and bring out your child's device.
Before we leave Distance Learning Academy, Lori, an important question. May my child join the DLA after school begins?
We have set up, we'll be following the same process that we follow for in-district transfers. So there will be a request form if you want to make that change after the school year starts. And again, we'll be following that same process. All of our elementary applications will go to Dr. Beisch to review, and that will be, the decision will be made on a case-by-case basis. Marcia, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Nope, just that we will have a process for reviewing those requests.
And so now we are moving into the question portion of the evening. And one of the very big questions is, what happens if a student or a staff member tests positive for COVID-19?
So our district has developed in using the governor's current guidance, a decision-making matrix to help determine what is needed once we learn that information. So for example, let's say that a parent informs us that their child has tested positive for COVID. There's the matrix that we're using involves different levels in terms of exposure. So we would want to look at, the level of exposure that day. How many students were, exposed by that student, the staff that may have been involved. So was it a few students? Was it an entire class? And based on that information, we would determine whether or not we needed to inform a number of students, an entire class, and possibly the class is quarantined for a number of days, and so on. Just, it depends upon the level of exposure, but we're using, as I indicated earlier, a school closure decision-making matrix and a resource that's available to us to help us make those determinations.
And then a question about, a bigger question about transitioning from one learning model to the next. So for example, if the local county data shows that we've gone much higher, what happens? Or conversely, if numbers drop, how long will it take to get our K-5 children all in school 4 days a week?
So we will be monitoring as a district the data on a weekly basis. And so, for example, if the county data that we receive indicates that we have a substantial spread, then we would want to take action to have a quick response and determine what that response would be. So again, it's going to be determined by the numbers, what that increase might be and what that quick and immediate response would be. In terms of moving to a less restrictive model, if you will, we will be, again, monitoring the data on a weekly basis, and we'll use that data and look at that data over a 3-week window to see if that trend, if the numbers are decreasing, to see if that trend holds. And then we would make a decision if that trend holds, whether or not to move into a lesser, if you will, restrictive model. And so, for example, what I might say to help you understand that better is right now, we are in a hybrid model for K-2 with bringing our students back, our K through students back in person at 50% capacity. Should we move to for example, bringing back everyone in person, we would need some time. We would need a little time to reconfigure. We've had to redefine some of our classroom spaces in order to have students at school at a 50% capacity. So we would just need a little time to make it ready for all students to be back in school.
Thank you. And then some very practical questions, and I don't know if Principal Rivard wants to answer these. Will my child need a backpack? Will there be lockers available?
So I'll offer Mr. Rivard the chance if he would like to respond. Otherwise, I will respond. Mike, if you do, just nope.
Forgive me, I'm sorry that it's a little bit of a struggle when you're sharing to actually hit the mute button. Can you repeat the question again, Tammy, just so I can reorientate myself?
It's some practical questions like, does my child bring a backpack to school? Will my child get a locker, for example?
So children across the district are going to be expected to bring their backpacks, especially if we're trying to keep our devices safe. So that would be really important, that we'd want our children to have their devices in their backpacks. As Dr. Bates mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, children will be entering the building and going directly to their classrooms. So as we do that, we know that we won't have a lot of congregation of children in the hallways, which is really, really important, especially when you talk about elementary or secondary students, but we really want them to go directly to their classrooms. From there, each individual elementary school is making some decisions about the use of lockers, and some of that is based on the ability to store students' items and making sure that instructionally we can go through the day and feel like the kids are learning with not having a lot of things getting in the way of that. So in the process of all this, we want kids with backpacks to make sure the devices are safe, and we want them to go right into their classrooms when they enter the school.
Thank you, Mike. The other thing that I might add about will students have access to lockers? One thing that we have to take into consideration, as Mr. Rivard alluded to, is just the capacity of students in hallways, and also traffic pattern flows in our building, because we want to ensure that there's not a lot of cross traffic. And so that is something else that our principals have been working really hard on, and that's ensuring a traffic pattern that again, is working to keep students safe.
Lori Posh, a question about music. Will my child have music? What does that look like?
Your child will have music. We know that all of our specialist areas, so our art, our music, phys ed, are important to the development of our children, just as important as reading and math and science and social studies. So we are committed to having all of our specialists and those classes throughout the week. We are taking a close look at music, though, because we know we call that a high exhalation course, where the singing part of music can help with, or not help, but hinder some of our safety protocols. So we will be limiting the singing that happens in class, but we will be doing a lot of other musical activities. So the musical theory, the history, exploring music, maybe not through singing in class, but by listening to different music opportunities. On Fridays, our specialists will be creating some additional opportunities that students can take part in. So we hope that the singing happens at home as often as it can. As Marcia talked about the cleansing of materials, we know that our music teachers will continue to do some of the instrumental pieces, and that will all be cleaned in between classes. And we're looking at the materials to make sure that they are not ones that carry and hold the germs. I also want to point out that we did some consulting with medical experts in our Central Care system right here in St. Cloud, and they have offered some guidance, as well as St. Cloud State music people, around what is safe for our music classes.
Thank you. Lunch is a very important question. I have another lunch question. Can you bring cold lunch from home?
Yes, students will still be allowed to bring cold lunch from home. The one thing that families may need to be aware of is the possibility of a child in a particular classroom having an allergy. But again, we would figure out what that would mean on an individual basis and how we might handle that, so that it doesn't affect possibly the entire class. But we will work with that. But yes, students still can bring their cold lunches to school.
All right, and that is pretty much our chat box full of questions. We might do a last all call for live questions. Otherwise, we can do a summary.
Well, while Tammy's just reviewing that for any final questions, I do want to take this opportunity again to thank you so much for joining us this evening. We know that it takes a partnership, and we are so grateful for the partnership that we have with you, the families of our students in District 742, particularly our K-2 students. As a former kindergarten teacher, those little learners, those young learners, are near and dear to my heart, and I'm excited for the start of the school year. And we look forward to greeting your children and you at conferences and on that first day of school. And again, we thank you for your partnership, and we wish you a good rest of the evening, and thanks again for joining us.
And I do have one question in closing, and it's a good one. It's one we haven't heard yet.
Okay.
The question is, what has the district learned from seeing what other school districts have done across the country after opening?
That is a good question. And I can tell you that we have been paying attention to what we're learning and hearing and seeing across the country as school districts are opening. And what I will say in response to that question is our utmost goal, if you will, is the safety of our students and our staff and our families as we begin this school year in this pandemic. But we also want to ensure that our students have the most exciting school year ever. And I'm confident that we can do that, and we will do that. We have an amazing, talented group of teachers, administrators, staff across the district who support our learners in so many ways that that it's going to be an amazing year, and we're going to learn a lot from the ways that we've had to adapt. And so we're doing that already from what we're learning. But again, our goal is safety and again, having a fabulous learning experience for all of our students. Tammy, you're muted.
I've caught myself. Hand in hand with your safety comment, this person asked if you would go back and qualify how play looks for the kindergartners.
I will do my best. I will do my best. You know, this is something we're going to be addressing with administrators and with teachers as we bring all of our teachers back to school. And I know that these are questions that they have, because as kindergarten teachers and as a former kindergarten teacher, play is an important part of a kindergarten student's learning. So our goal is to ensure that that still happens. And I can tell you that we're working on those protocols to ensure that it does, and in ways that keep students safe. So for example, as I shared earlier, it may further limit the number of students who can be in a play area. It may limit the number of materials that are out as choices for students, so that we can ensure that at the end of the day, we're cleaning those materials and then rotating those materials so that students will have access throughout the year to those materials, but not all at once. And it's teaching and modeling and practicing how to do that in a way that keeps students safe, yet provides them the appropriate learning experience for a kindergarten student.
All right, and I think that wraps us up for this evening.
And again, thank you for joining us, all of you. I thank my participants tonight who were here with me: Lori Posch, Mr. Rivard, Tammy DeLand, Lori Putnam, and Ryan Cox. And I'm again grateful for their assistance this evening. And everyone have a great evening, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.